Hello students, welcome to the channel Physiology Redefined. In the last video I talked about the phases of the action potential. So what I told regarding the action potential, that is the change of the membrane potential from inside electronegative to inside electropositive in response to stimulus of threshold intensity. As you know that during resting condition, inside of the membrane is electronegative in respect to outside of the membrane. Now if a stimulus is applied, then there is a reversal of the membrane potential. That means from electronegativity, it is turned into the electropositivity, and this momentary change of the membrane potential from inside electronegativity to positivity in response to the threshold stimulus is known as action potential. So there I told, suppose this is a stimulus is given. At this level, a stimulus of threshold intensity is given. Then what's happened? After a brief latent period, there is a fall of the inside electronegativity, gradual fall of the inside electronegativity up to a level which is known as the firing level, and once the firing level, that is minus 65 to 70 millivolt, is obtained, there is a very sharp fall of the inside electronegativity, reaches to 0, overshoots 0, and finally reaches at the level that is plus 35 millivolt, and then it is declined to inside positivity again in the rapid rate initially, then slowly, finally it goes beyond the resting value, and ultimately it reaches to the resting state or resting membrane potential level, that is minus 90 millivolt level. So this is the things that I discussed in the last class, that is the phases of the action potential. So phases of the action potential, as I told, the first one is the depolarization. First one is the resting stage. This is the resting stage. Second one is the depolarization. Third one is the repolarization. Fourth one is the hyperpolarization. And fifth one is again the resting phase or polarized state of the membrane. So today in this class, I will try to discuss the ionic basis of the action potential. How these phases of the action potential is getting mediated because of the flow of different ions. So first, here you see, in the resting condition, on the cell membrane, there are different category of the channel proteins. First category of the channel proteins that I talked about is the leak channels, which is leaky to ions, and through such channels, ions move from outside to inside or inside to outside depending on the concentration gradient. And these channels are non-gated channels. So in the resting conditions, there are movement of the ions takes place through the non-gated channels. In the action potential, or once the stimulus is applied, what's happened? In addition to the leak channels, there are involvement of some other channels which are gated channels. That means these channels has got a specific gate which control the movement of the ions from one side to other side. And this type of gate can be opened or closed in response to change of the voltage. And this is why this type of channels are known as voltage gated channels. So one such type of channels known as the voltage gated sodium channels. So this is the voltage gated sodium channels are there. Sodium channels are there which are present on the membrane. Now these sodium channels, voltage gated sodium channels, has got two gates. One is the outside gate, another is the inside gate. Inside gate, this gate is known as the inactivation gate or edge gate. Whereas the outside gate is known as the activation gate or aim gate. Activation gate or aim gate. So this is the conditions during the resting phase. Once the cell membrane is in the resting state, that means there is no stimulus is applied. And this is also applicable in case of latent period after the stimulus is applied, in which resting membrane potential of minus 90 millivolt is getting maintained because of the involvement of the sodium diffusion potential, potassium diffusion potential, and the sodium potassium pump. So in such a condition, resting phase, the voltage gated channels, what is the status of the voltage gated channels? The inside gate, that is edge gate, remains open during the resting phase, whereas the outside gate or aim gate is closed. As a result, what's happened? Even if the sodium concentration is high, sodium concentration is very high in the outside, even if the sodium concentration are very high in the outside, this cannot move to the inside. This cannot move to the inside as the aim gate is closed. Now, if a stimulus is applied, so if a stimulus is applied, here you see, if a stimulus of threshold intensity is applied, if a stimulus of threshold intensity is applied, what will happen? There is a slight opening of the M gate of the voltage gated sodium channels. Very slight opening of the M gate or activation gate of the voltage gated sodium channels, through which what's happened? Due to concentration gradient, so these are the sodium ions. Due to concentration gradient, slight entry of the sodium ions to inside of the membrane. That means some sodium ions will now enter through the slight opening of the M gate of the voltage gated channels, and as the this is the initial phase of depolarization. That means this is the phase. During this phase, what's happened? During this phase, this happens. That means there is a slight opening of the voltage gated sodium channels, through which little entry of the sodium ion from outside to inside, and as sodium ions or positive ions are coming in, inside electronegativity is getting decreased. Inside electronegativity is slowly getting decreased to the threshold firing level or threshold level, that is known as the, or critical level, that is known as the, that is about minus 70 to 75 millivolt. So this is the initial phase of the depolarization. Now what's happened? As some change of the voltage is taking place, that means inside minus 90 to it becomes suppose minus 80 or 85, like that. Some changes is there. That changes of the membrane potential, that will initiate, that will start the positive feedback cycle. A positive feedback cycle will be now initiated, and because of this positive feedback cycle, what's happened? There is a sudden opening of the end gate of the voltage gated sodium channel. So this is this one, and this will ultimately turn into this stage, which is known as the activated stage of activated stage, or the depolarization, phase. So here what's happened? There is a rapid opening of the end gate of the voltage gated sodium channels. As a result, what's happened? As a result, what's happened? There is a rapid entry of the sodium ion from the outside to inside. Rapid entry of the sodium ion from outside to inside. So sodium ion will rapidly enter inside. As the sodium ions are rapidly entering inside, there is a rapid fall of electronegativity from the critical level to 0, overshoots 0, and finally reaches at plus 35 millivolt. So because of the sodium entry from outside to inside, there is a change or reversal of the inside electronegativity to the inside positivity. Inside negativity is now changed to the inside positivity, that is around plus 35 millivolt. So this phase, depolarization phase, is basically because of the opening of the voltage gated sodium channels through which sodium ions enters inside due to concentration gradient. That means this phase, this depolarization, is basically because of the sodium conductance. So if I put the graph of the sodium conductance, then what's happened? The curve will be like this. Curve will be like this. So this is about the sodium conductance. So along the depolarization phase, this depolarization phase is because of the rise of the sodium conductance, increase the sodium conductance from the inside to outside of the membrane. So this is the phases, the second phase, that is the second phase, depolarizations of the action potential. So ionic basis of the depolarizations of the depolarization phase of the action potential is summarized. Then we'll get like this. So what's happened? Suppose, so ionic basis of the depolarization. Ionic basis of depolarization. What is that? In response to stimulus. In response to stimulus of threshold intensity, as I told, there is a slight opening of voltage gated sodium channels. sodium channels through which gate? That is the M gate. Through the M gate is slightly open, and thereby there is a slight entry of sodium ion inside. Sodium ion will enter inside. As sodium ion will enter inside, there is a fall of inside electronegativity. Electronegativity, here you see inside electronegativity will be reduced from minus 90 to, for say examples, minus 85 or like this. And this change of the membrane potential, this change of the inside electronegativity to positivity, change of the voltage across the membrane, that will initiate a positive feedback cycle. This will initiate a positive feedback cycle will be initiated, and that is responsible for further opening of the N gate of the voltage gated sodium channels. So further opening means then there is a further entry of the sodium ion inside, and thereby there is a further fall of inside electronegativity. In this way, this cycle will be repeated, this cycle will be continued. And once by this cycle, once the inside negativity reaches to minus 70 to minus 75 millivolt, that is firing level, that is known as the firing level. Then what's happened? There is a sudden and complete opening of voltage gated sodium channels. Sodium channels will be now completely opened. As the sodium channels will now completely open, as I showed in the diagram, there is a rapid entry of sodium ion from outside to inside, and this results rapid fall of negativity that reaches plus 35 millivolt, that ultimately reaches plus 35 millivolt, that overshoots 0 and ultimately reaches to the plus 35 millivolt. And this is how the inside electronegativity of minus 90 is getting reversed to plus 35 inside electropositivity because of the movement of the sodium ion, because of the increased conductance of the sodium ion from outside to inside. And this is about the ionic basis of the second phase, that is the depolarization. So now is about the second phase, that is the third phase. So first phase I discussed, second phase I discussed, now is the third phase, that is the repolarization. So regarding the ionic basis of third phase of the action potential, that is the repolarization. So this is about the repolarizations. Once the membrane potential is again coming back towards the inside electronegativity. That means membrane potential was plus electropositive plus 35, that is again coming back towards the resting value, and that phase is known as the repolarization. Now regarding the ionic basis of the repolarization. So this is the state of the membrane at the peak of depolarization. Peak of depolarizations. At the peak of the depolarizations, what's happened? This is the state. So that means at this particular part, what's happened? So as I told, at the peak, there is a voltage gated sodium channels are completely opened. As a result, sodium ions were coming in rapidly. And this is why inside was electropositive with a value of plus 35 millivolt. So this is the state of the voltage gated sodium channel at this particular point at the peak of the depolarization. At the same time, what's happened? Besides the voltage gated sodium channels, there are another category of the voltage gated ion channels which is known as the voltage gated potassium channels. So this is the voltage gated potassium channels. So in addition to the voltage gated sodium channels, there are on the membrane, there are also voltage gated potassium channels. But these channels also are sensitive to voltage across the membrane. They opens and closes in response to change of the voltage across the membrane. But this has got only one gate, that is the inside gate, which is closed at the peak of the depolarization. That means this voltage gated potassium channels gate was closed at the peak of the depolarizations. Now what's happened? As the gates are closed, though there are high potassium concentration in the outside, potassium concentration is very high in the inside than the outside. Potassium concentration is more here. But what's happened? As the gate was closed, gate of the potassium channel, voltage gated potassium channels was closed. There is no entry, no exit of the potassium ion from inside to outside. Potassium cannot go out. Now what's happened? At this particular point, now this voltage gated gate of the voltage gated potassium channels is open. Here you see, so this is at the this is the state of the membrane during the early part of repolarization. This is the state of the membrane in the early part of the repolarization. What's happened? Now the voltage gated potassium channels is opened. Gate of the voltage gated potassium channels are opened. As the potassium channels are get opened, and as the potassium concentration is very high in the inside, there is a rapid exit of the potassium ion from inside to outside. So rapid exit of the potassium ion from inside to outside means some form of positive ions are going out. So positive ions are going out. As a result, what will happen? Obviously, the electropositivity will be decreased. Here you see, electropositivity will be now again decreased very rapidly, and this is the phase which is known as the early rapid repolarization. So early rapid repolarization is because of the opening of the voltage gated potassium channels through which rapid exit of potassium ion takes place. Rapid exit of potassium ion takes place from the inside to outside. As a result, there is a very sharp reappearance of the electropositivity or sharp fall of the electropositivity. Now what's happened at this particular level? At this particular level, what's happened? So this is this one, and in the next stage, what's happened? The voltage gated potassium gate of the voltage gated potassium channel starts closing. Here you see the gate is started to close, but not completely closed or fully closed. Still some opening is there. As some opening is there, obviously due to concentration gradient, potassium ions here already there, but because of the concentration gradient, as the gate is still open, there is a exit of the potassium ion. There is a exit of the potassium ion from inside to outside, but with a rapid, with a slow rate, slowly, because gates are getting closed. So closeness of the gate that results slower exit of the potassium ion. So slower exit of the positive ion, and this slower exit of the positive ion, that will result the slower fall of the electropositivity and slower reappearance of the electronegativity towards the resting value. So this is the part which is known as the after depolarization. After depolarization of repolarization phase. So this is the state which is during the late phase of repolarization, and this late phase of the repolarization is known as after depolarization, and this phase is known as the early rapid repolarization. So initial rapid repolarization is because of the full opening of the voltage gated potassium channels through which potassium exit take place rapidly. The after depolarization is because of the slower fall of the electropositivity and slower reappearance of the electronegativity towards the resting value, that is minus 90 millivolt. It is minus 90 millivolt due to starting of the closure of the voltage gated potassium channels through which potassium exit takes place, but at a slower rate. So if we now consider about the potassium conductance, what will be the curve like this? So potassium conductance that will reaches to the peak at the after the peak of the sodium conductance, and then it will be like this. It will be decreased and it will be maintained like this. So this is about the potassium curve of the potassium conductance. So this is about the ionic basis of the repolarization. Now, if we summarize the ionic basis of the repolarization, what we'll get? So So we'll start with this phase, that is at the peak of depolarizations. At the peak of depolarization phase, what's happened? Two phenomena will take place. First one is, as I told in the diagram, as I discussed in the diagram, described in the diagram, there is a closure of the inside gate of the voltage gated sodium channel that I shown in the diagram. So closure of, that is known as the inactivation gate. Inactivation or edge gate of voltage gated sodium channels. So these are closed. As sodium channel gate is closed, so stoppage of sodium entry inside, stoppage of sodium entry will take place. So the curve will not go further up. Curve will be restricted at the plus 35 millivolt because no more sodium ion are coming in. So stoppage of the sodium entry is taking place and thereby no further rise of the electropositivity. So electropositivity rather will now decrease because of second phenomena. What is that? So now there is a complete opening of voltage gated potassium channels. Now the voltage gated potassium channels will completely open. As voltage gated potassium channels will completely open, what's happened? Due to concentration, there is a rapid exit of potassium ion from inside. This is due to concentration gradient. So this is due to concentration gradient. And as the potassium ions are going out, sodium ions entry is already blocked. Now also the potassium exit is taking place. Potassium in outflux, efflux is taking place. As a result, what's happened? As positive ions are going out, inside both these phenomena, these are responsible for the rapid fall of electropositivity inside. Both these phenomena, closure of the sodium channels and opening of the potassium channels, both these phenomena ultimately is responsible for rapid fall of the electropositivity inside. Electropositivity will rapidly falls, and this is the phase which is known as the rapid repolarization, early rapid repolarization. Now what's happened? This, in the meantime, the voltage gated potassium channels will start closing. So at this part, the voltage gated potassium channels will start closing. As the voltage gated potassium channels is closing down, obviously diameter of the pore through which potassium ion will pass, that will be reduced, that will be decreased, and that results the slow exit of potassium ion from inside. And this slow exit of potassium ion inside means slower fall of positivity inside and ultimately slower rise of electronegativity inside to the resting value, that is minus 90 millivolt. And this is the phase which is known as the after depolarization. And or negative after potential, after depolarization or negative after potential. Now what's happened? At this particular point, the resting membrane potential of minus 90 millivolt is getting achieved, but the transfer of the phases are not stopped at this particular moment. The electronegativity goes below the resting value, below the minus 90 millivolt, and that is the phase which I mentioned is known as the hyperpolarization. So what is the reason or ionic basis of the hyperpolarization? So now the fourth phase or ionic basis of the fourth phase, which is known as hyperpolarization. So hyperpolarization, what's happened at this particular part, at this particular moment, once the resting membrane potential is achieved due to the repolarization, due to the potassium exit, at this particular moment the voltage gated potassium channels are not completely closed. So that means at this part what happened, the voltage gated potassium channels after depolarization, the voltage gated potassium channels are still to be closed completely. There is no complete closure of the voltage gated potassium channels. So here at this moment, voltage gated potassium channels gate are not completely closed. As a result, what's happened? There is a leakage of potassium ions from inside to outside. That means more potassium ion goes out. More potassium ion goes out means inside will be more electronegative. Inside will be more electronegative beyond the resting membrane potential. So beyond the resting membrane potential, inside electronegativity goes further increase, and this is the phase. This one is the phase which is known as the hyperpolarization. So this is the phase which is known as the hyperpolarization. So this is the phase which is known as the hyperpolarization. So this is the ionic basis or reason of the hyperpolarization. So at this particular moment, what's happened? There is a closure of the, so here you, at this particular moment, what's happened? There is a complete closure of potassium channels takes place. Complete closure of potassium channel takes place. So potassium exit stops. As the potassium exit stops, now the resting membrane potential factors, sodium diffusion potential, potassium diffusion potential, sodium potassium pump, these factors will bring the curve towards the resting value. These factors will bring the curve toward the resting value, and so this is the again resting potential will be achieved. because of the operation of the factors that is responsible for resting membrane potential. So if we summarize these things, at this particular part, the opening of M gate of voltage gated sodium channel take place, starts. Opening of M gate of voltage gated sodium channels starts, and here at this part, complete opening of voltage gated sodium channels, complete opening. And here at this part, the closing of sodium channels and opening of potassium channel starts. And here at this part, the closing of potassium channels starts. And at this particular moment, the complete closure of the potassium channels, and thereby the resting membrane potential factors will result the reappearance of the membrane potential towards the inside electronegativity of minus 90 millivolt, or polarized state of the membrane will be achieved. So this is all about the ionic basis of the action potential. The details of this lecture will be available in the description box. If you like this video, please press the like button, share it to your friends and friend circle, and don't forget to subscribe this channel. Thank you.